Welcome to the Scalable Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we discuss the most scalable strategies, tools, and approaches to successfully invest in real estate. Learn how to make the most impact of your time, automate your real estate investing business, find off-market deals with minimum time invested, and leverage your capital to create as many income streams as possible so that you can achieve true financial independence. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Mason Clement. Hi everyone, Mason Clement here. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to ask you one question. Are you sick of the wild swings in the stock market and ready to try something different? Did you know that investing in stocks actually put you at the very bottom of a company's capital structure, meaning that there's practically 0% chance that you're going to get any of your money back in the event that the company files bankruptcy? That basically you're putting yourself in the riskiest position for a questionable return. Personally, I hate the unpredictability and just waking up and having half of my investment gone when I didn't do anything wrong. So what a lot of people don't know is that you can actually make higher returns on a consistent basis by investing in the opposite end of the capital structure, which is actually the safest place to be, which is on the debt side in a first lien position. And you can do that by investing in real estate, and specifically investing with my company in notes that are backed by the land that we purchase. So if you're ready to diversify your income stream, go ahead and go over to scalablerei.com and click on invest in the top right corner. There you're going to find a form that you can fill out to determine if you're eligible to invest with my company, Celion Capital, and we'll be reaching out to you to schedule an introductory call and speak more from there. So thanks a lot, and let's jump into the episode. Hi, Scalable Investors. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Mason Clement, and today we have Dustin Heiner on the show, who is the founder of Successfully Unemployed and Master Passive Income, and really just think that he's going to add a ton of value here. Don't want to steal your thunder. So Dustin, what's going on?
Hey, Mason, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I'm a real estate investor. That's literally what I do. I've been investing since 2006, but eventually I was blessed to quit my job when I was 37 years old. And now, I go to the gym and hang out with the family and jump on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Sure. Yeah, I think we got a lot of things to unpack here. So why don't we just jump into your background and how you got started and what your journeys looked like to get into real estate?
Totally. Yeah. So if you remember, I just said when I was 37 years old, I was blessed to be able to quit my job. And that's because I had enough rental properties or long-term buy and hold properties that made me money without working, each one making me $250 a month in passive income. Well, that's the end. But let me go back to the beginning. So what really got me into real estate investing? So I, like everybody else, have been following or had been following the path that we're all taught. When we're young, you're taught, okay, you go to school, you get good grades. And you get those good grades and you take them to a university and you get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt, you get in more good grades and you hopefully get a piece of paper. It's called a degree. And you take that and you go to other businesses all around and try to get a career. And then you work 40 plus years of your life and eventually quit or retire when you're 65 years old. Well, and honestly, you're trying to live off what you managed to save up that entire time. Well, I'm doing that. I'm literally doing that. And I get the most stable, secure job I could ever think of. So I started working for a local county government in California. So California is not going away, that's for sure. Government's definitely not going away, that's for sure. And it was a technology job. So you're doing IT work. And so that's the most stable job I could ever think of. But at the same time, I've also been entrepreneurial. So when I was growing up, I had a newspaper route. You ride a bike and you have newspapers and you throw them at 5 a.m. and bang them on garage doors, waking people up. I had a graphic website design company, skateboard manufacturing business. I even had a convenience store and a pizzeria, just built all these up from the ground up. But I'm also working that 9 to 5, that desk job. Now, this is at the same time, I bought one rental property. And that one rental property started making me money in passive income. And I realized I needed to be an investor, but life got in the way. My wife and I started having kids. But here's the story of what shoved me really into real estate investing. So I'm working that same 9 to 5 desk job that everybody has. And my wife and I started having kids. And when we had our fourth child, she was born and I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and bonds with the baby and all that good stuff. And from there, that same week, I get back to work. After 2 weeks off, I go back to work. And on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. She says, "Dustin, would you please come to the office?" And I said, "Sure." And then I hung up the phone and I paused for a second. And I thought, why in the world would they be calling me to the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon is not good. And I thought back a couple months before I went on paternity leave, there were some rumors or some rumblings going on that there could potentially be layoffs. I immediately shook that off. I said, no way. I've been working here 12, 13 years. I got plenty of seniority. My bosses think I do a good job. So I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, Mason, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step that I take, it feels like the hallway gets longer and longer and longer. It feels like my feet become lead bricks because the weight of possibly losing my job is starting to weigh down on me. Well, I get down the corner, I turn the corner out of the hallway, and I see my boss's door. His door's closed, and I see his secretary there. She's super sweet, nice old lady. She looks at me and sheepishly, she grins at me, trying to console me with her eyes and says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? Because she knows everything about what's going on. I have nothing. I know nothing about what's going on. And so I go and I take my seat. Well, as I'm sitting there, I start to think, my goodness, if I lose my job right now, all that I've been working towards my entire life that they've told me, if I lose my job, was that all a waste? And then I realized if I lose my job, how am I going to feed my family? We just had our fourth child. And then I started thinking, oh my goodness, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves are just crushing down on me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up. And out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world has been devastated. Well, she passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come into the office? Well, I get up and I go into the office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. And I tell the story because if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. So I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I realize two things. This is the reason why I tell the story. First thing I realized is I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to be able to find another job in the same county, different department. They weren't having money issues, so check, got that done. The second thing that I realized sitting right then and there in my chair, just getting laid off, was that I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realized that my value, what I would do when everybody asked me the question, we all get this question, well, Dustin, what do you do? I would normally reply, I work for the local county government. I do IT work and just kind of blow it off. But I'm projecting my value as coming from my job. My value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself and from my family. So right then and there, I realized no longer will I ever project my value as being my job. Now my value is I am an investor. Because remember, I wanted to be an investor, but life got in the way. And now I said, I'm no longer going to let life get in the way. And so I started realizing and telling myself I'm an investor. Now, it may so happen to be that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I am a full-time investor. So fast forward the story, started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250 a month or more in passive income. Eventually I had 30 plus properties. I was like, oh my goodness, why am I working here? Like, even though I'm making $75,000 a year here, I'm losing money. So I went to my new boss, the last part of the story, went to my new boss, great boss and all. And I said, hey boss, I'm laying you off. Like, here's your 2 weeks notice, jokingly, of course. And he says, Dustin, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate. It makes money for me without me even working. And so the last part of the story is, if you remember that hallway that I walked down, that was short hallway that got longer and longer and longer. My feet felt like lead bricks. Well, the last time I walked away from my job, I worked there for many, many years. I've taken this walk 1,000 times, a 1.5 mile walk because I was working in downtown. I didn't want to pay for parking. I'm too frugal for that. And so I walked to my car for the very last time, and I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need another job again. And I am getting paid for the value that I bring. And everybody needs to realize this. You're listening to this right now. You need to realize that your value is so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If you got paid for what you're worth, they would go broke. So what we need to do is to realize that we can take life in our own hands and become, I think, a real estate investor, even a business owner, but find another way to work to make money for yourself rather than working at dead end. I call it a JOB, a just over broke job. But I'll pause the story and let you probably got plenty of questions.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, that's actually been a lesson that I've learned recently. So I recently left my full-time day job to be a full-time real estate investor, but I didn't have the luxury of having a portfolio of rental properties and that passive income. I was like, well, I'll just replace the active income and be, full-time wholesaling land and wholesaling, doing whatever I'm doing. But as the market shifts and everything, it actually becomes very stressful not having that passive income coming in.
It
So
sure does.
see the
And
value
same thing
there.
with me. Yeah, that was the one thing, like, with my wife and 4 kids, she would not let me just up and quit my job. I wanted to. I wanted to say, okay, I'm just going to go, but she said no. And so being loving her and trying to encourage her, realized that if I bought real estate, that like if I could build myself out of a job, I could build my investing business enough so that I had enough passive income. And I asked my wife, I said, how much money do we need coming in from all of our properties in order to cover our expenses? Like, what are our expenses? And I remember the number. She said it's $4,200, mortgage and food and insurance, all that good stuff. And I said, okay, $4,200. And I really just started doing the math. And I said, one property making me a minimum. Remember, this is a minimum. I have some making me $500, $600, $700 a month in passive income. The minimum is $250 a month. Well, that's $3,000 a year without working. If you had 10 properties making you $250 a month, that's $2,500 a month and $30,000 a year in passive income. If you had 20 properties making you $250 a month, that's $5,000 a month in passive income, $60,000 a year without working. You just keep scaling it from there. That's why I love your podcast. It's scaling this real estate. And so what I realized was if I did it the right way, I can scale my business to be able to quit my job and cover all of my expenses. So I just worked hard and harder and harder to save money to buy the next property. It took me about 6 to maybe 7 years. And then I was blessed to be, and I like the term successfully unemployed, where I can literally make money to provide for myself and my family without working for somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. Just it's really being the more responsible way instead of just putting that responsibility onto someone else and really relying on them to provide that paycheck. You're really taking matters in your own hands. So it makes a lot of sense. But back to what you said about the title of the podcast being scalable real estate investing, it seems like it could be more scalable to just buy some smaller multifamily properties. And I was watching a few of your videos on YouTube. It seems like you also do buy some multifamily. So what do you think about that? Like, what are the key differences? And what if I just was like, no, no, I'm going to really start with just multifamily. They're two different animals, right?
Well, yes and no. Meaning, yes, they're similar and different at the same time because you can approach it in different ways. I'll give you how I do it, how I buy multifamily. Now, I love long-term buy and hold residential, so 4 units and below. That's like my bread and butter. I've done it either so many times myself or coached hundreds, if not probably even thousands of students now how to invest in real estate. So it's my bread and butter. I literally can I actually do it in my sleep. It's so ingrained in my brain. And so I could do that. But the other way would be multifamily. Now there's there's a bunch of different ways, but 2 ways I'll talk about for multifamily. You can enter into syndications where you go out and you get other investors, you bring all your money into a deal and you become a syndicator. Well, a syndicator helps people to buy into a multifamily. Now, the business model there, I'm not a big fan of that because it's not buy and hold. It's not long-term buy and hold. You get in, hopefully you're going to get 8 to 10% return a year. And then within 3 to 5 years, they hope that another syndicator will come along after you and buy it for more. So that it all depends on the next person to come to buy it for more than you bought it. And then depends on the next person to come and buy it more. They just just keeps happening over and over again. I don't like that. I don't mind it. I do invest in some syndications with some friends and stuff that they want to exit in 3 to 5 years. That's okay. But no, I am looking at creating generational wealth. All of my properties, my 30 plus properties I own now, I will literally give these properties to my kids. And so what I do now is I buy multifamily. So here's a strategy that I like to use. What I do is I get other investors to invest with me, kind of like a syndication or basically like a syndication. But what I do instead of selling it, I refinance it after 3 to 5 years. Appreciation of the value's gone up. And then I pay off my investors. So I own it free and clear and everybody's paid out. And now I own it for literally, decades, and I could literally give it to my kids. So that's what I think about multifamily. Now, I personally think I like the idea of going with small residential. So not multifamily. And the reason why is because actually just about every single person has bought a house before. Most people, if you live in a house and you bought a house. Only thing you really need to do is do it again, but make sure that you start a business or make it a business that you're making money. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're going to sell a candy bar for $1. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, you can sell it for $1 and you can buy them for 50 cents. Well, that's great. You would do that all day. You would buy them for 50 cents and sell it for $1. But here's another thing. This is what's great about real estate investing. Let's say you didn't even have the 50 cents to buy a candy bar, but it cost you 25 cents to borrow that 50 cents. So a total of your expenses is $75. Well, if your expense is $75 for that candy bar, but you could sell it for $1, you'd be like, how much more? I need to borrow as much money as possible to keep buying these properties. And that's how we scale our businesses. Number one, leverage. But number two, we make sure, just like our candy bar analogy, we don't buy the property unless we can make a minimum of $250 or more in passive income. And so with that, I personally like the Monopoly game. I love investing in land. But then from there, you get properties, and then you eventually get to multifamily, hotels and apartment complexes. So I think if you want to teach anything to your kids, Monopoly is a great thing to teach them. But yes, I think the fastest way to get wealth is residential, 4 units and below personally. And that's what all myself and my students do.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that you talk about investing out of state. So, and also went through like your mini real estate course on your YouTube channel and talk about rent to price ratio. So it seems like the first thing when identifying a market. So what would be considered a good rent to price ratio?
Well, so as far as ratio, see, I'll be completely honest. Just about everybody listening to this is much smarter than me. I'm not that smart. I don't like ratios because I just don't understand them. Numbers, like, they go in my brain and they kind of flutter away. They disappear out of my brain, which it's a bummer. So I just make it as simple as possible. Here's the simple way that I do it. I try to buy a property for as little money out of my pocket and as little mortgage that I would take every single month, or payment every single month, that I can make from a property for $250 a month in passive income. Now, here's what you might be thinking. Well, should I buy a $300,000 house and make $250 a month? Well, that's not bad. $250 a month for a $300,000 house is not bad. But imagine if you had a $100,000 house that you made $250 a month. Well, that mortgage payment for $100,000 is so much less than $300,000. So when you think about price to rent ratio, the reason why I like to buy lower cost homes is because, let's say it's not rented for 1 month. Well, a $300,000 mortgage, that's gonna be what, $1,800 or something, probably somewhere around there. That's a lot of your passive income eaten up if it's not been rented. Now, what we do is we like lower priced homes, but here's the thing. And this is, again, why I love the scalable REI. The scalable real estate investing is where you start a business, and with that business, you buy the right properties and you put it into your business, like the right price to rent ratio, like you just said. So let me quickly give you how I got started, like the first property that I bought and how I learned, but then it was the wrong way. So I'm going to tell you the wrong way. This is what I did, but this is the wrong way. And I want you to forget it. And then I'll tell you the right way, how to do this, how to build a business so you can scale it. So it was back in 2006 is when I first started investing. And I was watching one of those late night infomercials, like 2 a.m. The real estate gurus say, hey, we're coming to your town. It's going to be a free 2-hour seminar. Come for free. So I did that. I went to that 2-hour seminar, and trust me, you don't want to go to these. But I went to that 2-hour seminar, and it was all hype, all sales pitch. In the end, they said, now run to the back. It's normally $10,000 or no, $100,000 for a program, but it's only $500 or $1,000 for you today. And so I did that. I ran to the back and I bought their 2-day seminar. And that 2-day seminar, sadly, was another sales pitch for more coaching. They said, okay, now run to the back. It's now $50,000 for this rental property program. It's $40,000 for a flipping and $30,000 for a wholesaling and all that. It was horrible. Now, what I did was I realized, number one, I didn't have that money, so I didn't go that route. But I took what little they told me, and this is what they tell you. And this is the wrong way. This is what I did, and my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months because I didn't build the business first. I didn't make it scalable. This is what they say. Find a property anywhere in the country. Doesn't matter where it's at. Then you run the numbers. So you find a property, then you run the numbers. That means you calculate all your expenses, and then you want to make sure that you can rent it for more than your expenses. And they say, you want $50 a month in passive income, but you'll get appreciation. The appreciation is what you're going to love. Well, I'll pause this and say, I don't invest for appreciation. In fact, I will literally give these properties to my kids. So I don't care about selling it. It's making me money on day one, making me $250 a month. So quickly get back to the wrong way. Then they say, once you run the numbers, make a little money in passive income and you get appreciation. Then they say, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property. then spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property. Then you find a tenant, and then you try to find a property manager, somebody to manage the property. Well, in my opinion, it's just about backwards. What we do here at Master Passive Income in our real estate investing is we build the business first. Now, and remember, what I did was I followed the gurus, and my property manager started stealing from me in 6 months because I didn't build a business. I didn't make it scalable, because gurus, they'll tell you, and this is what they told me, you buy one property and that property is your business. No, no, no. Our business is not a property. Our business owns properties. Let me give you a quick example of what that looks like. Another kind of candy bar analogy. So if you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and everything like that, you're not going to sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. No, you wouldn't do that. You go out of business in like 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas, so those are shelving units. You'll get the countertops, the cold storage, the bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, all of that stuff before you buy any inventory. Then once you build the business, that's when you buy the inventory and put it into your business. Same thing with real estate investing. I built the entire business, found the right property managers, contractors, roofers, mortgage brokers, insurance agents. We could go through all this in a minute, but you build the entire business, making sure that it's going to run itself. And then you buy a property, and that's a piece of inventory that you put into your business. Because I did that, remember the first time property manager started stealing from me. The second time I realized, because I knew I'm not the only one to ever have done this. This has happened. This has worked before. Let me figure out, but I've always been entrepreneurial. So with that entrepreneurial mindset, I approached this as a business. And what I did was I realized once I had the entire business working, the right people working in the business, with that, all I need to do was buy another property and scale it by putting that into my business and then keep moving to the next one. So the right way is to build the business first so you can scale to quit your job.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That was one of my next questions is if you're out of state, you don't really have a lot of contacts. What's the best way to find these different team members, like a contractor, especially, or a handyman who may not even have a website to go to?
Yeah, let me take a quick step. I'll show you if you're going to invest out of state, because we invest all over the country. We love investing all over the country. Like, we don't necessarily need to invest where we live as long as we find the right people. Now, what most gurus will tell you is the backwards way. And now let's say if you did the backwards way and the last thing you did was find a property manager. Well, let's say you spent thousands of dollars and you're almost there, and you call up a property manager and you say, hey, property manager, here's my address. I want to see if you can manage it. Well, what's the address? Oh, it's number 1 Happy Street. And they're like, oh man, no, this has happened to plenty of people. Oh man, no, I would never manage that. I'll get shot if I go over there. Well, you no longer have an asset anymore. You have a liability because it's not going to be making you money. So what we do, just like that convenience store, if you start an entire convenience store, you're not going to grab somebody off the street and say, hey, you got a pulse. Come on in here, manage my money, manage my inventory, manage my customers, manage my business, manage my employees. You wouldn't do that. You would interview them first. So in real estate investing, what we do is we find a city that has good inventory, the right types of homes that we want to buy with the price to rent ratio. I like the cookie cutter type homes, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 to 1,600 square feet. These are ones that anybody either wants to buy or rent. With that, once I find an area that has a lot of inventory, then I pause looking at properties. Now I go to my property manager, and this will get to how you find the right experts in your business. So we pause looking at properties. In fact, a lot of my students, what they'll say is, hey, Dustin, I found a new city. This is great. I already have 5 realtors sending me deals. I said, whoa, stop. You're going about it the wrong way. Realtors are the last step. Who's first? It's the people that are going to be running the business. It would be a bummer if you bought a property and then you couldn't have anybody run the business. So what we do is we wait for realtors for the very, very last. But the first step is inventory, a city with good inventory. Second step is make sure we find the right property manager. Now, when you talk about how to find these experts, there's a lot of different ways. Like, I teach my students different ways. Like, I'll give you actually a creative way. Well, a couple ones. So Yelp.com, you can find property managers, Google search, things like that. But here's a tip that I can give you. So if you're going to look for a property manager, let's say you're looking on, let's say Craigslist or Facebook or someplace for properties for rent. If you're just looking, at properties for rent, and you see a similar listing for different homes, but they have the same phone number, same person, that could be a property manager. So you call them up and say, hey, are you a property manager, or do you know of property managers? So that's first, getting a list of property managers to call. But here is the absolute key. I didn't do this. and my property manager started stealing from me. The key is interviewing every single person that you are going to be putting in your business. Now, here's the tip. Texting is not interviewing. Emailing is not interviewing. Phone calls are interviews. You can talk to them. Now, property managers, you won't be able to get them on Zoom. They're too busy for that. But you give them a call and you talk to them on the phone, you'll get to know how well are they at communicating? Do they know what they're talking about? So what I do with my students, I give them, actually in my course, we have a list of 22 different questions and answers of what you want to ask your property managers and the answers that they should respond back. So what we do is we all interview them multiple times. And even though, so like I said, we invest out of state. Out of all the 30 plus properties that I own, I've literally only seen one of them before I bought it. I don't even go to the states where I invest in because I don't really want to. I don't care to. Now, realtors will tell you there's a term, location, location, location. In my opinion, that's out the window. We don't worry about location because I might not want to live there, but there are plenty of people in that area that would love to live in great properties that have good rents that are taken care of. So what we do is we build the business, find the inventory, the city with good inventory, then we find the property manager and we interview. Next up, we find mortgage brokers. Mortgage brokers are going to help you to buy these properties. After that, we find insurance agents, we find inspectors, plumbers, roofers, handymen, contractors, all that sort of stuff before we buy any properties. Now, here's the big key. An expert is somebody that knows that area. Like Zillow, they're not experts. Trulia, Redfin, Realtor.com, those are not experts. Who are the experts? They are the people that live there on the ground. And this is how you'll know you have a good expert as a property manager. Call up your property manager. Hey, property manager, here's the address of a property I'm looking at buying. Remember, or I haven't said this, but everybody needs to remember this. We don't buy a property unless a property manager signs off on it, says, yes, I will manage it. This is how much you could rent it for. This is the type of clientele, the vacancy factor that you're going to have. Now, get back to if you're calling up your property manager, hey, here's this property I'm thinking about buying. Tell me how much you could rent for and tell me about the clientele in the area. The good property manager might be something like this. Oh man, I know that area. In fact, I have a property that I'm managing that's like 2 blocks over. And so we were trying to get $1,400 a month. Zillow said $1,400 a month for rent. We couldn't get that. The most we can get was $1,300. That's expert information. That's so much better information. If you're running your numbers on $1,400 and you're trying to get $250 a month in passive income, well, if you could only rent for $1,300, that's only $150 a month in passive income, which is not our minimum. Our minimum is $250, and then obviously go up from there. So that's what we do is we find the experts, we hire them after interviewing them very, very well. And then that's once we have the entire business built, that's when we actually buy the properties.
Okay. And you said minimum mortgage payment. So how much are you usually putting down? Because obviously you could lower your monthly payment if you put down like 50% equity, but how much are you usually putting down is 20%?
My suggestion to all my students is, let's say you're going to put down 20%. If you're going to put down 20% on a mortgage, then yeah, you better be making $250 a month in passive income. But what I also try to do with my students is to where we pay as little money coming out of our pocket. Like when we get a job to save up money to invest, that's just one way. There are other ways, everything from private money to hard money lenders to signature loans. You go into a bank and do that, commercial loans, bundle loans, portfolio loans. In fact, I've literally had 15 different ways to raise money, to have money to buy properties. And I've literally used all of them. I've even used a credit card to buy properties. It's actually a very advanced strategy, but I've done that because just like that candy bar analogy, I can buy it for 50 cents. It costs me 25 cents to borrow the money, but I'll make 25 cents all the time. So when you're thinking about how much down payment you're going to put down versus how much your passive income is going to be. I've had some students when let's say you're going to buy an $85,000 house. And yes, there are houses that sell for only $85,000. I've had some students that had, I don't know, $400,000 to start investing, said, hey, I'll buy this with cash for $85,000 and I'll make $250 a month in passive income. And I say, well, here's a thought. What you can do, if you buy it with cash, that's great. But your goal is to not have any of your own money in the deal. So let's say you buy it for $80,000 with cash, and then you refinance it. You pull that cash back out, put that back in your pocket with now you have no money in your own deal. You need to, after that happens with a 30-year fixed loan, that's when you need to make sure you have $250 a month. So the $250 a month is with the mortgage, with the taxes, insurance, all that sort of stuff. But once we refinance it, pull that cash out, we go out and buy a next property. Now, here's the great thing. And Mason, you'll definitely understand this, or you'll get this. So I don't pay my taxes on any of my properties. I don't pay my mortgage. I don't pay my property manager. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay for repairs. I don't pay for any of that stuff. My tenants pay for all that. Now the money, definitely goes into me, but out to all these bills. But I don't have to get a job to get a property manager. In fact, I have a lot of students say, well, Dustin, how do you afford a property manager? I'm like, I don't. I make sure that expense is accounted for before I buy the property. So that's what we do when we're looking for properties, is $250 a month. That's including a 30-year fixed mortgage on the property and all the expenses. Like, this is on top of everything. This is how we feed our family, put a roof over our heads, put food on the table, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. Is it usually 10% paid to property managers? What's the percent you'd expect?
10% is normal. I've even paid as high as 12%. Sometimes 8% is good, but 10% is normal. But it also depends on the state and the city. Some cities are a flat fee. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my properties in Houston, all the property managers in the area, they're a flat fee of like $95. Because, if you're 10% of $2,000 a month, that's $200. That's eaten up out of your passive income. Like, oh my goodness, that's a lot. So property managers started realizing they have to start competing for prices. So they are, let's say, $95 or $110 a month instead of 10%, which would be $200 a month. So it just depends on the area. But here's another tip I love to give everybody. Everything in this business, real estate investing, is negotiable. So not just the purchase price being negotiable, not just any repairs, not just literally every single time money is exchanged, you should negotiate. Even your title company, say, hey, title company, I want to hire you to do the title. They say, well, here are our fees. Well, can you change this fee, or can you get rid of this fee? Everything's negotiable. Same thing when you're buying a property to when you're leasing it. Everything is negotiable, especially your property manager. If you have a few properties, let's say you're bringing over 5 properties, which one time I think I brought over like 10 properties over to one property manager. So I brought a lot of business to him. I said, hey, I don't like this leasing fee. Leasing fee, the first month's rent is a leasing fee. Can we cut that to like half the first month's rent? Because he wanted my business. He said, sure. So that saved me a ton of money. So everything's negotiable. But what we do is we build the business so that it runs itself, and we hire the right people.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that everyone should remind themselves. I know myself as well. Like, I bring so much business to like just 1 or 2 title companies. It's like, really, why am I paying these settlement fees and all this for all this?
Always, I mean, it doesn't. I love negotiating personally. In fact, all my students, I like when I'm actually working with them, I say, hey, when you're going to put an offer, talk to me. Like, I want to help you to negotiate, right? And I've even done this where I've even, like, one student said, hey, Dustin, here's the scenario. This is what I'm going to do. What would you offer? And I typed everything out. I literally wrote everything. This is what I would do. He just copied and pasted that and sent it in, and it saved him. I think the house, they were asking $110,000. I think eventually we got him to like $72,000. So negotiating is fantastic. It doesn't hurt to ask. You already have a no. So if you ask, you might get a yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how many months are you teaching your students to factor in when calculating the vacancy?
Love that. So it's not necessarily months. It would be percentage. Minimum percentage of the entire year of it not being rented would be 5%. That's the minimum. You always put that in the vacancy factor. It could be as high as 8 to 10%. But remember, we're hiring the experts. Realtors, they would not necessarily know. They'll guess, and they might have some educated guesses on what the vacancy factor is. Your property managers, they are the ones that will absolutely know, because they're managing properties. They'll see how often, like this one area, there's a lot more turnover. Tenants move for some reason. Maybe it's middle to lower class, or even lower class tenants. They might move faster, or vice versa. So that's what we do, is we ask the property managers, what is the average vacancy factor for this area? So if you're going to err on the side of anything, 5 to 8% is probably what I would suggest. And we add that in as our expenses. So we make sure we make $250 on top of that. Now, if it stays rented for 2 years straight, then that's extra 10% back in your pocket.
Okay. And what about if you do have a tenant that moves out, like on average, they move out every year. So what's the CapEx to make it rent ready for the next tenant that you usually factor in?
Yeah. So that's a great question, because there's a lot of things that you need to look at. Everything from your mortgage payments to you still have your taxes that you still have to pay, insurance, like all that stuff is still going to be coming out of your pocket. But at the same time, let's say you have to evict somebody. That's an added cost. If you have to file with a lawyer and you have to get a writ, which is getting the deputy from the sheriff out there, those are expenses that you have to account for. But on top of that, loss of rents is another one. And then the fix up, like there's so many things that, so I personally err on the side of renting my homes for lower, like let's say, well, every rental will have a low, middle, and a high rent amount. I don't like being at the high, absolutely at all. Usually I'll be lower than the middle. The middle, people might think, I can save a little bit of money moving over there. I like to be like at the middle towards just a below to where it's almost to the low. And the reason why, because I don't buy the property unless I can make it for $250 a month at that lower rate. But at the same time, because of that, I don't want them to move. If they stay in year after year after year, they're paying off my mortgage, they're paying off the taxes, they're paying everything for me, which is great. And I don't have that turnover. Here's what I've even done. I've even had, lowered it by $50 because I wanted somebody to stay in there longer and I don't have to pay for turnover. You're going to be, I don't know what the actual ratio is. Like I said, I'm not that smart. So I don't know ratios. I just know I want as little money coming out of his pocket as possible. I want to have the tenants not move. And at the same time, I want to buy the property with as little money out of my pocket as possible. So what I would suggest is when you're looking at your properties, you want to know that your tenants are going to stay in there as long as possible. And that's by giving a good quality of housing at the lower than average rents.
Okay. And do you do Section 8 housing, anything like that?
Yeah, some properties I do Section 8. In fact, I really like Section 8 and a couple different reasons. Definitely number one, the government is guaranteed, like they're literally guaranteeing it and paying the rent every single month like clockwork, as long as that tenant stays in there, which they don't want to give it up. They don't want to be looked at like, oh, no, you lost your Section 8 because you destroyed the house, which another great thing about Section 8, the Section 8 inspectors, they inspect the house. Now, you will have to put more money into the property to make it up to their code, which is fine because it's a nicer property, but they also check to make sure the tenants are not ruining your property too. So I really like Section 8. It's also helping people out too on top of that, but on the homes that you can do Section 8, I try to do non-Section 8, but at the same time, if my tenants or if my property manager is telling me, well, we can get like 20% more in rent if we did Section 8. I'm like, well done. Let's go ahead and try that.
Okay, cool. And then I was also wondering, back to like running the numbers, interest rates are obviously going up. So do you think people should be adjusting their strategy at all? Or like how should they be, factoring that higher cost of debt in?
I will say that I'm excited as an investor, super excited that interest rates are going up. I know that might sound kind of counterintuitive, but I'm very excited because I don't care about the interest rate. Remember, I'm not paying the interest. Who is? My tenants are paying the interest. What I more care about is total dollar amount to purchase the property. So if interest rates go up, that means prices must come down because people only have, let's say, $1,800 for either rent or mortgage. That's all they have. Interest rates go up, that $1,800 doesn't go up. It stays the same. So that means prices must come down. So I'm really excited about that. Now, when you're thinking about if you're going to be buying and you're seeing, hey, right now it looks like interest rates will keep going up for the past, 8-10 years. Interest rates literally stayed flat at what, 2%, 3%, something like that. So ridiculously low. We haven't in the last 10 years seen much adjustment in interest. My suggestion, 100% on with you. What I would do, let's say you talk to your banker and he says, well, the interest rate right now is going to be 6.75 on your investment property loan. Okay, great. What I would suggest is at least put a half a point on top of that. So instead of 6.75, let's say 6.25. I would probably, 7.25. I wowould probably do that. I would err on the side of more money coming out because you never know. In fact, one of my students, he has put an offer and it's been sitting on the market, the seller's been sitting on it for like 3 months. And apparently he's in the, I think, Navy. He's on a submarine, so it's hard to get to him. All that to say, interest rates are going up. The offer that he put back in like 3 months ago, if he'd have got the interest rate back then, it'd be fine. But now interest rates have gone up, so he's not getting as much passive income. So he's having to adjust his offer, saying, you're taking too long. This is my new offer now. So yes, I would absolutely adjust for higher. I'd rather be surprised on the good end, meaning, oh, wow, I thought it was going to, I put my numbers at 7.25, but I got it for a 7. Well, that's a quarter of a point that you don't have to pay for.
Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I definitely want to have the wind to your back and have some extra upside if possible. So in terms of just finding these properties, are you mainly teaching to find off market or even just going through MLS? what's like the primary acquisition strategies?
Yes, yes, and yes. And just like I said, there are 14 or 15 different ways that I've used financing or got financing to buy the property. That's a tool in my tool belt to get the deal done. So if there's one deal that it requires private money, and I also, oh man, I also need a hard money lender, and I also need a signature loan and a mortgage. I'll do all that. There are tools to get the job done. Same thing with finding properties. MLS is great. Zillow's fine. Realtor, all those are fine. Off market, talking to other investors. If other investors are selling, talking to property managers. I've even had title companies say, "Hey, this property went off the market, or sorry, the deal went through. Would you want to talk to the seller?" Of course, yeah, absolutely. So we have actually, I don't know, at least 10 or 15 different ways that deals are sent to us. And on top of that, I like a big one. I love wholesalers. Wholesalers are absolutely fantastic. Like my best friends, because they work hard to find sellers for me, and I'm on their list, and they send me a list, and I'll wake up in the morning after they've worked really, really hard. I'll be drinking my coffee, looking at the deals that they sent me, and oh, I like that one. Let me go ahead and buy it. So there are lots of ways, but it's again, they're tools that we have in our tool belt to find properties and to buy the property. So we have as many options as possible.
And how many offers do you think? I know you said you're not really big on like the ratios and, oh, I have to make 100 offers to get one property, but how many offers should I expect to really need to make to start getting some traction?
Well, because we're investors and we buy it for lower than it's worth, like we want to capture equity. That's one way we make money when we buy a property is capturing the equity, buying for less than it's worth. Another way we make money is with passive income. Another way we make money is by forcing the appreciation up, by fixing a market appreciation is another way we make money. In fact, there's 6 different ways. Tax benefits are fantastic, where you save so much money in taxes. Another one is mortgage buy down, like your tenants are paying for your mortgage. So with all that, capturing equity is one where I capture equity when I buy it. Now, you're gonna have to put in a lot of offers, especially when it's in a seller's market where it's better to be a seller. You need to put in a lot of offers. Now, ratio, the only thing I could tell you is every no is one more no until you get a yes. So you just keep putting in offers. I have one student, I think he was putting like 4 offers a day. Now, that's not 4 offers through one realtor. He's finding, let's say, 4 different realtors or finding a wholesaler. He's just making sure that he's putting out offers. And I think one time, I want to say it was about maybe about 8 months ago, he literally had 4 deals at the same time because he was putting in so many offers. But these offers are so great that he's able to buy them. He has other investors that want to buy with him, loan him money, and he's able to buy the property. So it all depends on you putting in the offers. And remember, the principle is every no is one more until you get a yes.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it seems like using these creative ways and using like other people's money or credit card, cash advances, whatever, is definitely a good way to kind of build that velocity. Because I personally don't get excited by acquiring, 1 or 2 or 3 properties per year. I want to do that like per month and just build a giant portfolio. That's where my mind always goes to. So it seems like that's, I guess, possible.
Yeah, you can do that. Well, I'll give you an example. So one of my students, actually, so I created a conference called the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. I basically had so many students that they said, hey, we're friends online. Like we're always on the group coaching call. We're all friends. Let's do a meetup. Like let's all meet together. And I said, well, if I'm going to put something together like that, let me see what I can do to make it better. So I called up 27 of my friends who are expert investors that do their own investing. They have their own coaching students and everything. I called them all up and I said, hey, let's put together a conference where we all just teach. We all just give, like no sales pitch, no run to the back, none of that. It's a pitch-free conference. And I did that. What's great from that was we had a couple hundred people there for this first year in 2022, 2023. I'll be in Phoenix. And so with that, somebody who came there found me, and then he joined my coaching program from March. In 4 months, he bought 4 units, so it was 4 units. So 2 single family homes and 1 duplex. And he was already making like $1,250 a month, I think, in passive income from these properties. And he's just going fast and fast and fast, refinancing, pulling the cash out. All these different, now it's interesting because most people, and it's understandable, you don't know what's out there until you actually are shown it or you figure it out by stumbling upon it. And so my students, what I love to do, just like all these different tools in their tool belt, same thing with how to scale their business faster. I give them all the options. And with their risk tolerances, their goals, and their financial situation, they figure out how best to proceed. So I don't tell them, do this. I say, here's all your options. These are what's going to happen if you do X, Y, and Z. My suggestion would be this, but you need to make the best decision for you. So with that, like I said, when you're talking about, Mason, how you just want to keep scaling it, you absolutely can. It's just, are you limiting yourself and limiting like your own belief? Like maybe I shouldn't use this private money, or I shouldn't use whatever it might be. There are so many ways to do it. You just need to have somebody that's actually done it before and show you, okay, here's an option for you. And then if that works, then it works.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. I know that starting out, trying to just start any type of business, I was just like, I know that you mentioned in one of your videos, like if you don't have the map to get there, then obviously you're just going to make things a lot more difficult for yourself. But by finding someone that's already gotten there and show you the way, that's the best way to go. So totally see the value in it. Yeah.
Well, to give you an example, I just started doing jujitsu, like literally like a week ago. I'm all sore and bruised up and everything. And if I could try to figure out myself by rolling around, but no, I go to an expert. I go pay a coach to actually coach me. That's why professional athletes literally go and they pay a coach to do it. Same thing. You go to college. Anybody goes to college because they want to learn from other people. And so it'll fast track you. If you get around somebody, like I've literally made just about every single mistake that you could possibly make. And I've ripped that out of my business. I said, okay, that didn't work. Rip that out. But all the right things kept it in there. And now since I coached hundreds, actually it might even be thousands of students now, with that, I have a system now that I say, this is how we do it. And my goal is within 90 days from any student that joins with me, within 90 days, having their first property under contract, their business built, everything ready so they can make $250 a month in passive income. Because it's not that hard. Now, it's not easy. If it was easy, anybody would do it. But it's simple. The process is literally simple. I literally just laid it out for you. Find inventory, find the right property manager, keep building that business, and then eventually you'll find deals, and then buy it, and you put in your system. It's really not that hard, but it's simple. And it's not easy, but it's simple. And so honestly, if anybody could do it, I can do it. Actually, let me say this. If I could do it, like I said, I'm not that smart. Most likely every single student, every single audience, person in your audience is smarter than me. I just figured out. I'm just like your next door neighbor saying, hey, this is what I figured out. This worked out for me. And it's worked out for hundreds, if not thousands of other people. But yes, definitely. I like fast tracking my learning. And you have to pay a little bit to do that. But imagine, how much does most people pay for college? 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 or more $1,000 to actually just get a piece of paper. Well, if you can spend a little bit of money, get a coach, or if you even find a mentor, like you find somebody around your town, like you're at the gym and, you invest. Can you show me how to do it? It's going to be so much better if you are fast tracked by somebody else who's already proven the model. So they can show you how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Over the years, I've definitely realized that you either pay with time or money. And if you're trying to pay with time, like sometimes I feel like, I'm just going to get burnt out and not even follow through with that business idea anyway. So it's not even worth the time to do it. So I better pay someone to compress that time into something.
It's totally fast tracking. You're 100% right. You're going to pay either way. I personally know, and we all know, time is the only commodity that you'll never get back. You spend it, but you can never earn any more of it. And so why not spend a little bit of money to make sure you save your time? Like I said, when I was 37 years old, I was able to quit my job. Now, if I would have started like 5-10 years before that, or let's say 10 years before that, I quit when I was 17 or 27, started when I was 17. I have students that started at 19 years old and they've quit their job by 23 or 24. I mean, it's all depends on the person, everybody. And in fact, I believe anybody can do it. It's really not that hard. In fact, I'm teaching my kids how to do this as well. And like I said, this is generational wealth. I will literally be giving these properties to my kids.
Well, that way you don't have to pay any taxes on it too, because you're not selling it. So yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, great. Well, I think we've hit on most things. Now we're coming up on the hour and you had a hard stop. So if someone wants to learn more about your one-on-one coaching or your courses, how do they do that?
Actually, I have a free course. Do you mind if I just give that out to everybody?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Yeah, if you text the word rental, RENTAL, text the word rental to 33777. Rental to 33777. I'll literally give you my entire course, show you how to find an area of the country to invest, how to build a business, how to scale your business to be able to quit your job and making $250 a month from every single property. You can even go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. All one word, masterpassiveincome.com/free course. I'll literally give it to you. Then you can also find me. I have my own podcast, so I love podcasting. So I have my solo show. It's called Master Passive Income. It's basically just me. Rarely do interviews, but I just want to help and just give out all this information on how to actually do it. So check out that podcast. I even have my YouTube channel, like you mentioned. Same thing. I just want to give out as much information as possible. I'm also on Instagram, thedustinheiner.com. And even though it's THE, like the Dustin Heiner, I'm not that arrogant. It's just the only handle I could find. But my goal is literally to help 1 million people achieve financial independence by investing in real estate. So everything from my free courses to the podcast, the YouTube channel, my conference that I put on, to everything, it's all of me trying to serve and to help other people. Because I found the more people that I serve, the better my life gets and the better everybody else's life gets. And I feel better. Like when my students get their first property, in fact, so my students, we have a Slack group also where we all get in there, we network and all that sort of stuff. With that, a student just today said, oh, I got my first property, just got rented. I'm like, awesome. He said he got $300 a month in passive income. We can do it. So yes, I appreciate everybody. And Mason, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Sure, no problem. I think it was very helpful. So thanks a lot for taking the time. All right, that's another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to leave a review and subscribe on whatever channel you're using to listen or watch these episodes. And also be sure to go to scalablerealestateinvesting.com, scroll to the bottom, and fill out the form to sign up for our email. And you could also reach me directly at mason@scalablerealestateinvesting.com. That's MASON at scalablerealestateinvesting.com. If you'd like to get in touch with me to either partner on deals or even be considered to do your own episode on this podcast. Thanks again, and have a great day.